Congenital rubella syndrome itself is one of the causes of autism. So if you let people start not having the rubella jab, which is what would happen if you had single jabs, you'd get more cases of autism as a side effect of that.
Dr. Halverson, on that point, that you would, A, pick it up. If you're picking up those much rarer side effects, you would pick it up in the research. And B, if it was at that low level, it would be very irresponsible not to use the MMR vaccine because of the greater risk to other children.
This is one of the criticisms of the research that's been done, is that the research has not been done to detect autism. With the greatest respect to Professor Taylor, there are many criticisms of his papers because they are not the correct design trial in order to pick up rare problems from mass immunisation. The only trial that would do so would be to immunise one group of people with the MMR vaccine, another group of people not immunised, or probably more happily give the single vaccines and follow them up for several years, and that has not been done. Why has the government not done that, despite having been informed 4 years ago by Dr. Wakefield of his concerns?
The woman who's... Sorry, I will let you back in. I want to bring in some more of our parents here. The woman who's in the third row back for him, yes, with a sweater.
Yeah, I'm mother of a child with autistic spectrum disorder. I also work on a helpline. I speak to 5 to 10 parents of children with autism every day. 61% of those parents feel that the MMR has caused this regression. Yeah, okay.
And if you say back to if they feel that, and clearly they do with a great passion, and we've read about it and we've heard it, do you say to them, the evidence from scientists in the majority of cases is that there isn't that link? What is your role in that? Is it just to feed that information through elsewhere, or do you try to discuss it?
Well, we absolutely discuss it because, you know, I think that, you know, what I'm worried about is that we miss the point here. The MMR, on the whole, for the vast majority of the population, is safe. But there is a subgroup, a definite subgroup, where it causes catastrophic...
But if there is that subgroup, would you be saying then don't have the measles vaccine in any form whatsoever, but if you think it's the measles aspect of the MMR?
It's the first degree, there are a very definite subgroup of children. With the first degree family. So if you have things like autism in your family, then, you know, very definite. If you have things like...
Would you accept that, Professor Taylor, there is a subgroup conceivably that has genetic disposition combined with the MMR vaccine could produce... click into the autism?
I mean, we certainly haven't been able to find it.
And you've looked for it?
Indeed, directly.
Searched specifically
we've looked
for it?
at the postulated group, which is the children with regression, the children with bowel problems, and can't relate the onset of their bowel problems, their regression, or their autism to the MMR vaccine. There is no evidence for a subgroup whatsoever.
And yet we hear one of the health ministers apparently indicating that there might now be screening for preschool kids to see whether they've got autism. So aren't you dealing here with some difficulty?
I don't think it's got anything to do with the MMR vaccine. I mean, there's a very real need to do more research into the causes of autism. There's a very real need to develop better services for children with autism. But we do know that MMR vaccine is not involved in the initiation or the causation of autism.
We'll take a pause there. In a moment, the politicians come in to have their say as the government plans an advertising campaign in favour of MMR, while the Conservatives demand that parents, as we've been hearing from some of our audience here, have the choice of an alternative single-dose vaccine. That's after the break.
Some people will go to any lengths to put off our salesmen. Shame, really, because all we want to tell them is the average domestic gas bill is still cheaper with Man-Web Scottish Power than it is with British Gas. You're better off with Man-Web Scottish Power.
Did you know that from just £2 a week you could be protected by Medicash? So call 0800 320 500 for details. Amongst over 20 tax-free benefits, you could receive cash payments for optical treatment, the dentist, a stay in hospital, complimentary treatments, physiotherapy, and lots more besides. Join between 16 and 66. Stay a member for life. No medical required, no increased premium with age. Medicash is a not-for-profit organisation, and we pay out thousands of cheques every week, and we've been looking after people for 130 years. So protect your family with Medicash. Call now on 0800 320 500. Medicash. when it matters most.
Lucky? Lucky!
With car insurance from More Than, when you've earned your maximum no-claim bonus, we protect it for life, no matter how unlucky you are. To protect your maximum no-claim bonus for life, call More Than on 0800 878787.
Every day, we make over 4 million car journeys of less than a mile. To help tackle the congestion, Kia has launched a bike especially for short trips. It cuts through traffic and comes as standard with every Kia Sedona people carrier. If we're sensible about the small journeys today, there won't be such big problems on our roads tomorrow. Kia, think before you drive.
At the Boots Opticians frame sale, even some designer frames are as little as half what you'd normally lay out.
One love, oh, one heart. Say now, let's get together and feel alright. Feel Jamaica move you. Oh, Jamaica touch you. Oh, now let's get
From June, Air Jamaica flies non-stop twice a week from Manchester. Call 0800 44 5533.
We all fall in love. And we all get colds. Hopefully not on the same day. Thank goodness for Kleenex tissues. Always pack a Kleenex pocket pack so you can share your feelings and not your cold.
Don't hide. The average domestic gas bill is still cheaper with ManWeb Scottish Power than it is with British Gas. You're better off with ManWeb Scottish Power.
Welcome back. We're joined up here now by two MPs, Julia Drown for the Labour Party and George Osborne for the Conservatives. And as I was touching on before the break, they have strongly competing views about what should be done. Julia Drown, it's clear that there's been a loss of public confidence over this issue. Leaving aside the right to privacy debate, which is one thing about which people take different views, if Tony Blair had been able to say or willing to say that his son had had the MMR jab, do you think that would have helped restore public confidence?
Well, I don't think he should, because I don't think we should be judging politics by what happens to the children of MPs. I don't think we elected the children of Tony Blair, nor his partner or his wife. And I think, you know, if we remember John Gummer, when he brought out in the middle of BSE his child and got them to eat a burger, that didn't convince people. They just thought, oh, he's using his child.
But Yvette Cooper did say it.
And that's her choice.
But that's why I'm saying it's a personal choice. I'm saying, of course, it's a personal choice, and I'm not taking a view one way or the other. What I'm saying is, clearly, people have said it. If he had been able to, as Prime Minister, say, yeah, as it happens, I not only approve of MMR, but I give it to my family, wouldn't that have... someone that we've heard here talking, saying, I'm not confident.
Sure.
If he had said, it must have made a difference, mustn't it? I mean, he is Prime Minister, after all.
Sure, but then what we're doing is we're asking him to bring his personal life into politics, and I don't think that's right. Yvette Cooper's said that as the Public Health Minister, but that hasn't been enough to satisfy people. Just people who don't like Tony Blair are using it as another excuse to have a go on that. And I don't think that's the right way forward. From what he says, it's absolutely clear that he'd do it, because he absolutely backs the evidence. But I don't want him to say, just like I don't want Ian Duncan Smith or anybody else to say, because I don't think, you know, politics should be about the particular lives of the 650 people who are elected. We're there to represent our constituents, and it's those views that are important, and we should listen to professional organisations which clearly show that MMR is the safest option.
George Osborne, do you share the view of your health spokesman, Liam Fox, that the MMR vaccine is the safest method of delivering protection from measles?
Well, I do. I'm not a doctor, I'm a parent. From the evidence I've seen, and I've followed the debate as every other parent in the country has, yes, I do think the MMR vaccine is probably the safest option. However, I do think people should have a choice. I mean, here we are in the 21st century, and we have government ministers and scientists like Professor Taylor saying to parents all over the country, you're not fit to make a choice about your own child. And I just think that is
they're not quite saying that, are they? What they're saying is, and what the Chief Medical Officer is saying is, if we have that choice, there will be more children suffering harm because they will contract measles and maybe rubella and maybe mumps because of the way in which the vaccination is done. And so I put it to you that under those circumstances, when you say you trust and listen to senior scientists, that it's downright irresponsible, therefore, to say we're on the side of choice.
Well, actually, what the Chief Medical Officer and other people are saying is they don't actually trust enough parents to go through with all the 6 vaccinations. They're using a broad public health argument about the number of parents who would take up the vaccine. The problem is...
They're saying one more thing. Hold on. They're saying one more thing. That's part of his argument. The other part is that the children that would be exposed are those who are between doses, A, and B, that 750,000, I think his figure was, of very young children who aren't yet able to have the vaccine.
Yeah, but hold on. I mean, Jonathan, the point is we're not starting with a blank piece of paper. We're starting with a crisis in the MMR vaccine. In Cheshire, which is where I represented Parliament, the number of people, number of parents taking out the vaccine has been steadily falling, and we don't even know the figures for the last few weeks, when I imagine there's been a complete collapse in confidence. And therefore, it's no good Dr. Taylor here saying, well, you know, we should stick with the MMR because that's the only safe choice. Parents are not using the MMR vaccine. And perhaps I could ask Dr. Taylor, if a parent is not prepared to use the MMR vaccine, does he recommend they then have 3 separate vaccinations, or should they have no vaccination at all?
Just on that single, you're asked the question, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, a lot is made about parents' choice, but I think we also, as well as what parents want, we also have to look at what children need. And I think children have rights as well, and they have the rights to the best protection possible against these dangerous, killing diseases.
Understood, that's your view. Given the specific circumstance he described, where you have a parent who says, I'm not doing the MMR, but I would do the 3 single vaccinations, what you're asking, would you recommend that they have that?
I think you have to look at why they want to have it. If they want to have it on the basis that MMR causes autism...
No government minister, no person from the Chief Medical Officer's office will answer this basic question. There are tens of thousands of parents out there who, for whatever reasons, you may think they're being completely irrational, will not have the MMR jab.
Julia Brown, just on that...
The choice only now exists for those parents who can afford to pay privately.
You come to the nub of a real human... You have circumstances about which there is big debate. You have a real nub of the problem, which George Osborne has touched on, which is parents are voting with their feet. They're saying no to MMR. The government is saying no to choice unless you're rich enough to pay for it. Which do you believe is right, that people should be able, under those circumstances, to have the 3, which I have to say you didn't answer that question, Professor Taylor, or not?
Right, OK. The Tories here are being consistent. They're rightly following the medical advice and saying MMR is the best option. Then when the medical advice comes through, it says that all the evidence says that if we go for single vaccines, it'll be worse for children in this country. They choose not to follow that advice. And nor do they say which one should parents go for first. Nor do they say, well, we recommend going for measles first and risk children getting mumps, which is the biggest cause of viral meningitis, and we all know what dangers that cause. Or, you know, then delay a further year for rubella, and we can see, you know, the huge damage done to children through rubella, so they're not being responsible. So I say the NHS should offer the best treatment. Of course, we always need to review every new bit of evidence, and if new evidence comes out, we have to change the policy. But it's right that the NHS offers the best treatment to parents, and we keep talking to them, and we say everything at the moment points to MMR being the safest. That's not to say there aren't, you know, occasional side effects, but that there isn't a no-risk option in this. You know, to not have the vaccine risks, like a parent I sat next to this week, her child had got measles 2 weeks ago, and she was told her child might die. There isn't a no-risk option for this, but the government and all the medical evidence so clearly points to MMR being the safest thing to do.
On this question of choice, let me just ask again, members of the audience, the arguments for and against choice. Have you heard them very clearly outlined, both by the scientists and by our politicians? Guy with the white shirt on the edge and third row back.
I think the main point that you're forgetting is let's look at the immune competence of the child. If the child is deficient in T and B cells, then there is a likelihood of vaccine damage, and that is categorically been put forward in the Merck manual. volume
Sorry,
12.
You sound like a professional in the field. Are you a doctor, a scientist?
I'm a father with an autistic son.
With an autistic son.
Yeah.
And on the basis of that, do you draw the conclusion, and having heard what Julia Drown said, do you draw the conclusion that you should have the right to have the 3, or would you opt out from them altogether in your case?
I would now, knowing what I know, look at the immune competence of the child. I would test to see if there is a deficiency with the immune system. If there is, I wouldn't vaccinate. If there isn't, they have...
As well as the joint vaccine, though, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
It's a problem for the single vaccines as well as the joint vaccine, so that might not be... And overall, the best...
Yes, but it's the immune competence of the child that has to be addressed.
Sure. But the other thing that a lot of people don't know about the MMR, and the doctors say it better than me, is that it doesn't all come in at once. One bit comes in first, then the other. That's just the way the body reacts to it, so it's not them all going in at once.
Let me bring in another member of the audience. Third row back with the glasses and the reddish jacket. Yes.
Thank you very much. I direct the centre nationally that monitors vaccine or contributes to the monitoring of vaccine safety, but also we deal with the outbreaks. And I'm of an age that can remember the last time that we gave choice, a seeming choice, and which many parents, this is with the whooping cough vaccine, many parents and many doctors in good faith went down and rejected the whooping cough. And the result was that we ended up with 70 unnecessary deaths and hundreds of thousands of infections. But I wanted to make a broader point, which is that in the last 10 days there's been hardly anything that is new. The situation hasn't changed. Vaccination rates are not collapsing. As Liam Donaldson said, if anything, they're recovering.
Well, he didn't say that. He said they were recovering until the outbreak, as he put it, of media controversy. And I would guess that he would say, if I persisted with him, as it were, that he would be very worried that George Osborne was right and that there was a drop. Otherwise, why would the government be going to have its advertising campaign it's about to start?
Well, we shouldn't be doing... I think it's mischaracterising those things as advertising campaigns. I think they should be information. But the point I wanted to make was in the last 10 days, nothing new. And I just wanted to ask the panel and yourself, Jonathan, as to whether all of the media publicity and the debate is actually helping parents in making the choice. That these choices should be left very much to the individual parent with their medical advisors, with the information, and just question as to whether it should be something that we have so much, and particularly asking our colleagues from the political parties, as it would be something I think is very important that one leaves to the parents and to their medical advisors, and to remove yourselves from the fray.
You're being asked, very unlikely prospect, incidentally, you're being asked George Osborne to remove himself from the fray.
Well, I just think, this is a conversation. The conversation we're having in this studio is a conversation that thousands of parents have around the kitchen table every morning. And it would be irresponsible of politicians or newspapers, which are supposed to reflect the society we live in, not to bring up these issues and have a debate about them. I mean, the idea that you can let's not have any more talk about MMR on the TV or in the Parliament or in the newspapers and the problem will go away is a myth. I mean, this thing, the MMR discussion began amongst parents and it's now reached a national debate. But you can't stop it, as some people would like.
Professor Taylor, I want to shift it forward a touch. We know that politicians, not as individuals necessarily, but are generally speaking not trusted, and ministers aren't trusted, which is why they, as it were, wheel out medics to speak on their behalf who they feel are more trusted. The evidence appears to be, whether it's because they think that senior scientists are in the hands of government or in the hands of pharmaceutical companies or what, that more and more people distrust the scientists as well, which must be very worrying for people in your kind of position.
I mean, these are very complex issues, and certainly any one scientist is unlikely to have a proper perspective on them. One needs to take the understanding of other scientists involved in the area. I mean, in this area, a paediatrician's view is valuable, but we also need to take into account the views of the immunologists, the public health physicians, the virologists, the vaccinologists, and fortunately we do have these groups available. I mean, there's been independent groups, the Medical Research Council in America, the Institute of Medicine, American Academy of Pediatrics, all of whom, from these multiple perspectives, have looked at the evidence and come to exactly the same conclusion.
Mrs. Locke, you'd like to come in again.
I mean, Professor Taylor's latest paper was funded by the Department of Health. It's an epidemiological study, and I'm saying conduct independent research on the children with regressive autism and find out what on earth is going wrong. That's the only way you're going to be able to restore public confidence.
Professor Taylor.
But that's exactly the group we were looking at, the children who had regression associated with their autism and the children who had bowel problems associated with their autism.
The government has said that it wants to do more to look at autism, to find the causes of it. But, you know, in the meanwhile, all we can do is offer to parents and make sure all the advice is there to parents, and it clearly does show in favour of MMR being the safest option. And I do have to say, I do think the media have been irresponsible in a lot of this. They should say what's happening, but they should properly look at the evidence, you know. And we've had ridiculous headlines under, you know, in articles that saying the latest research has nothing to do with MMR, no conclusion should be brought, and the title goes up saying new MMR fears, and that's bound to raise fears with parents. We've got to have the MMR the media to be more responsible on it.
I agree with that. We're talking about the research that could be done. I agree with you entirely. There are two types of research that could be done. One is the proper epidemiology following children prospectively, not retrospectively with respect, and that has not been done. The other studies that have been done, as you say quite correctly, is to look at the children who are affected. And the only team that are doing that is Dr. Wakefield and his team. Dr. Wakefield has offered his samples to Dr. Taylor and other people. He's offered them to the Department of Health to do the independent studies, and they have not taken him up on his offer.
I have to say that's not true. He's never offered them to me.
He's offered them to the Department of Health. Right. They have not been taken up.
Tried to replicate it, have not found his results.
No one has tried to replicate his studies.
People have tried to replicate his results.
Rather than all at once, I'm going to go briefly back. Rather than all at once, I'm going to go briefly back to Mike Fitzpatrick, who's been waiting patiently. Just very briefly, I'm afraid we're just about there.
There's no sense whatsoever in calling for a single separating the vaccines, because if you believe that the measles component of the MMR causes the problem, then why should it be any better to give it separately? It doesn't make any sense at all, and it will actually cause a lot of damage. I think there unfortunately are a lot of people with a vested interest in promotion of this scare. There are people profiting greatly from private vaccinations, separate vaccinations. There are all sorts of people that have hyped it up. There are political interventions in it that have unfortunately only fueled the panic.
Okay.
And I think it all had a very adverse effect on parents of children with autism.
And I'm afraid only 10 seconds, Judith Barnard, to you.
I'd like to ask Professor Taylor if he'd be prepared to release his raw data on his recent study. He didn't before. Andrew Wakefield has offered that.
Okay.
Let's have some independent statisticians reviewing those figures, please.
In a brief word, yes or no, will you release, won't you release? And you've got 2 seconds only before I cut you off.
I don't think it would be appropriate.
OK, I'm sorry we can't continue this discussion because that, I'm afraid, thank you everyone for participating. That's all we've got time for this week. We would love to go on. I hope it has been a useful discussion of the kind that people are having in their homes and elsewhere and not just crude headlines. Thanks very much. We'll be back again next week, once again, on the big issue of the hour. If you'd like to join our audience for that, then here's the number to ring. It's 020-7261-3784. I'll give it to you once more. 020-7261-3784. We'll be back again next Sunday with whatever we decide is the big story of next week, with a politician or a group, maybe not. In any case, I hope you have, until then, a very good week. Good afternoon.
What do you want to do today?
I don't know.
Do you want to take the dog to the park?
It's a bit wet.
Do the crossword?
Not sure.
How about visiting your mother? Well, how about this? Manchester City versus Preston on Soccer Sunday Live. Next.
So long as we're together.
At PowerGen, we and Monsters Inc. have one thing in common. It's not our power stations. It's not our workers.
Morning, Sally. Morning, Ricky.
It's not our customer service.
Listen, I need a favour.
No, what PowerGen and Monsters Inc. have in common is our energy.
Go!
PowerGen, energy for mums, dads and little monsters everywhere. Call PowerGen to find out how to earn Monsters Inc. rewards.
Imperial Cancer Research Fund and Cancer Research Campaign have already made progress. Now we're joining together to become the biggest threat to cancer ever. Cancer Research UK, helping you stay together longer.
Monday's child is fair of face. Tuesday's child is full of grace.
Whence this child is full of woe. Thirst this child has far to go. Pride this child is loving and giving. Saturday's child works hard for a living. The child that's born on the seventh day is fair and wise. Where do they all stay? Oasis, nowhere comes close.
At the Boots Opticians frame sale, even some designer frames are as little as half what you'd normally fork out.
What is it with the adult peoples, Jack? They could be in the park playing football instead of doing all the huffing and puffing stuff.
Yeah, going nowhere fast.
Hello, Mr. Running Man. Yes, it is I. Lighten up, guy.
What are you doing?
I'm looking for a cloth.
What for?
To clean the loo.
New Parazone flushable wipes are the handy way to keep your toilet surfaces hygienically clean.
Oh, round your head. Well, I thought you were going to help.
Parazone simply does the job.
Slow down, Wolfie!
Now, Manchester City versus Preston is today's live match on Soccer Sunday.
Soccer Sunday with Nationwide. Football matters.